believe that those who are for that, be the League of Cities, the Association of Counties, the School Board Association, they have presented a good argument with a lot of evidence why that needs to happen. And quite frankly, on the other side, those that have been against it really haven't presented much evidence on why it's not a good thing. And so what I do, and I think most legislators do, is you approach things with an open mind. You try to hear both sides of the story and make a good judgment call. And I'm a lot more comfortable with the separation of CERS today than I was at the end of session. And I think when you talk to many legislators in the halls, I think they are more comfortable with it, because after vetting the idea and presenting the evidence, it seems to make sense. So I think that's something you probably will see happen, is the separation of CERS. We will hear from PFM on July 31st, and they will give us the recommendations. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception that whatever those recommendations are, that will be the form of the bill, and that's not. They're an outside group that's doing an audit that will give us a non-biased view of our pensions they have up to this point, and they'll give us recommendations on what they think we should do. We'll have to take that and then work with the governor's office and all the different interest groups and stakeholders, and craft some sort of reform that's a compromise between many groups. My hope is that the special session will be a month or two down the road after later September, first part of October, so that we can take those recommendations and negotiate out a better deal if need be. I don't know, maybe PFM will roll out some recommendations that nobody had thought of. But I think that we're going to have to, we need some time to take apart what their recommendations are and put together something that we think is a good compromise. I've always said that a good compromise is a solution in which no one is happy, but everybody can live with. What I'll hear from my constituents is, are you going to raise taxes? That's pretty much a non-starter. I wasn't elected to come here and raise taxes. So when we look at reform, it's going to have to be something of true reform, of shifting the burden from a current system that's not producing the tax revenues that it is because our economy has changed, to a system that will adequately receive the revenues that we need. Centralized collection, that was something I think I studied back at the University of Kentucky when I studied the Soviet Union. At least that's what comes to my mind. That's not something that I think is going to be accepted well here in the General Assembly. I think most of us come from the political philosophy that the best governance is at the local level. I was on fiscal court for 6 years. You have more access to your local officials, and so I think that the tax collection needs to stay with the locals instead of bringing it to the state and then bringing it back out. I can tell you, the biggest fear I think when it comes to centralization of tax collecting, and I fully support this governor and this legislature that they won't do this, but there have been past legislatures and past governors that sweep funds. And while I trust our current governor, our current legislature not to do that, I don't know who's going to be in those seats in the future. And so I think we set a dangerous precedent going forward by allowing that to happen. We really need to dedicate a revenue stream to our pensions going forward. If you look at our pensions, there's not much that can be done because of the inviolable contract. So a lot of it's going to be us tightening our belt and making the payments that we need to. It's like in your home budget. When you have a large expense in your home budget, be it a loan or a debt of some sort, you have to make payments to pay it off. And sometimes you have to make additional payments, and that's what we're going to have to do with our pension systems.